we're going to jump in a second questions and the second topic, which is about the financial break-even point. What's important and interesting is the COVID crisis has been reinforcing the reality of the fact that low fixed cost structure is facilitating and enabling agility in business. So basically, we know that forever. But what's interesting is we saw that the crisis, the COVID crisis, has been reinforcing and accelerating some elements. So, say, getting a low cost, a low break even, it's interesting. But the question is how to do it. What are the best solutions to lower the fixed cost to be capable to lower this break-even point? This is the first question. The second point is what is or what should be the role of purchasing procurement in this process? I'm not speaking here about costs. I'm really speaking about new ideas for lowering this break-even point. For this second topic, we are pleased to welcome José Luis Blanco. He's CEO in Nordex Acciona, coming from Spain and Germany. I'll be back on that point. Emmanuel Herbay is CPO from Capgemini, and Annie Asseik, General Manager Procurement Technologies in NCTC, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The panel discussion will be moderated by our colleague Aldrich, partner in Argon. So now I'm very pleased to introduce José Luis. José Luis is, as I say, CEO, and I'm honored to welcome José Luis because it's pretty rare to have a CEO on board. So bienvenida, José Luis. It's important to have your point of view because the point of view of CEO is something which is speaking about the business. And since the beginning, we have been saying that procurement has to support the business. So procurement is enabling the business. So thanks very much, José Luis, to be with us. CEO today, how important is lowering break-even points?
Thank you very much, Bernard, for having me. Good to be with you all over the world. Well, I would say that from a company perspective, the importance of break-even points is even more important within the current volatile market environment. We were all getting used to a more volatile global environment with key policies of large countries having substantial impact on trade relationships globally. And on top, the COVID pandemic has just accentuated a period of huge volatility in our business environment, and is not only happening on the demand side, but also on the supply side. So with huge volatility in front of us and with us, the best approach to support our business, in our view, your business, at times of downside volatility, is to have previously lower the break-even point of the company. And of course, this is easy to say, difficult to accomplish. This can be done by introducing a flexible operating model for your company, both to cope with the downsides, but as well the upsides. For example, again, easy to say, difficult to achieve, be a benchmark in your industry in terms of fixed cost level, realize growth, not only with your internal capabilities and capacities, but also via external capabilities, capacities, and collaboration with competitors and with key partners and suppliers, aiming at low capex, asset-light approach, and at the end, bottom line, what is important is to increase the contribution margin per unit and by unit sold by decreasing variable costs and as a consequence, increasing the value generated to the customer. So one of the utmost important and very good question, by the way.
Thank you, Jose Luis. So did you have to change your practices in terms of budgeting, or are you keeping the same budgeting practices and you have been adapting some tools? Have you been managing this obligation to change to lower the break-even points?
I think that what COVID has brought to our life and to our businesses and to the budgeting process and practices of our business and to the break-even point is that risk management is becoming even more important in the budget practicing stage. And it's important not only to identify the risk and opportunities and quantify them, but also to have in parallel mitigation actions ongoing for the major risk. I would say that risks are part of our daily management within a volatile market context, but the difference is about how you implement in parallel mitigation actions. So you make sure you reduce the exposure or even the time to react to the risk once the risk materialize and realize. So I would say highest and more importance to the risk management and to the contingency measures in a proactive basis is the lesson learned from this current market environment from our point of view.
Thank you, Jose Luis. When we speak about lowering of a break-evens, usually we speak about make, buy, or rent. So what's the mix in between these three different solutions, and did you change your proportion? What has been the impact from in terms of practices?
Yeah, that's always a very good question, regardless crisis or not. I would say, generally speaking, CPOs and COOs can and should lead business units in conducting ongoing detailed analysis that thoroughly evaluate the cost, the benefits, the risk and rewards of outsourcing and the implication of keeping the activity in-house. Generally speaking, CPOs must always challenge their organizations to make more objective as well as more informed make or buy decisions. And indeed, it's the responsibility of the CPOs to ensure that all the right trade-off have been taken into account and evaluated, and all the possibilities have been considered. Do I think now differently versus 5 or 10 years ago? I would say the answer is yes, probably yes. A mixed model is even more important under current volatile environment, but also it requires that the organization, not only procurement, feels equally responsible for the performance of internal and external capabilities. In current environment, we think it makes more sense to combine efforts, even with your competitors, collaborating with your competitors, collaborating to keep partners, to do things that make sense for the parties involved. Important to take into account, firstly, currently more drivers are forcing us to work simultaneously, internal and external capability. The fast race in innovation, in technologies, the volatility in the market, the higher pressure on competitiveness is forcing all of us to work under a balanced model between make, buy, and rent, and apply that model in a fast and flexible fashion because circumstances are changing rapidly. So speed to adapt to the new circumstances is key to be successful. Second differentiator is probably how you extract value out of working simultaneously with the different models. The differentiator is how capable you are as an organization to fit continuous improvements and benchmarking from the different models. And third and final, in our view, the decision model currently incorporates more possibilities, not only the pure models of make or outsource, but also mixed responsibilities, build to print, co-design, share IP, utilization, collaborating with competitors for common benefit. So definitely the current uncertainties bring more opportunities to do this in a more fast and flexible fashion.
Thank you, José Luis. You're CEO from one very important provider in the renewable energy. And I just want to know if in your sector, in this sector, there are some very specific elements, or what you face today in this specific sector is common to other sectors. Do you think there are some specificity in function of the sectors today? And your sector is quite specific, so do we find the same specificities in?
I would say, you know, the main strategic and operational implications very much are basic industry and applies to every sector, and are relating to making sure the organization and the different functions are prepared to manage this model in an efficient way. I mean, firstly, creating the organizational setups in terms of roles, responsibilities, that value internal and external capabilities as equally important for our success. And this, generally speaking, applies to most of the sectors I know. Secondly, it's very important to have a proper resource allocation, to have a successful model in terms of people, skill set, CapEx, for making the models to work. Specific is always is the quality organization, enabling the quality organization to secure and ensure output, quality, and deliver the same specification, regardless internal or external factories. The customer at the same, they receive a product from your brand, regardless how you produce your product. It's very important as well, and this is generally speaking applying to everybody, protect your IP, your competitive advantage when working very closely with external partners that at the same time work with your competitors. So this is something that we should do, but we should do in an efficient manner. We need to balance to work closely with external partners, but at the same time manage certain sufficient independence from these partners to negotiate in a I would say in a reasonable position, not to be exposed to single source. So you move from you don't want to move from a full in-source to a full outsource without leveraging power. But I would say that the principles, generally speaking, apply to majority of mature industries.
Thank you, José Luis. You know, we are in a conference for, let's say, purchasing people, procurement people, sourcing people, supply management people, and you are a CEO. I just would like to know if you have a key message for these people, these other participants. As a CEO, what type of message will you give them to say, what is your role for supporting this lowering break-even point?
I would say, you know, I'm leading a company, global company that serves global customers. You know, our customers are big corporations with big names recognized all over the world. To show how important that is for me, I can summarize very easily. 80% of what we sell, we buy. from key partners. So the role of CPOs, the role of the global sourcing community, in order to, together with the technology department and with the market department, developing global supply chains in collaboration and in cooperation with key players in the market to serve our customers globally in an efficient way is key. So the role of the procurement organization is crucial to engage with partners, to together, even in some cases with competitors, bring competitive solutions for our customers to stay ahead of the game in this decarbonization mission that we all have as a society. So crucial role, one of the more crucial roles in order to fight against climate change and to deliver society, to help our customers to deliver society what society is demanding, which is clean, affordable, renewable energy. For that, we need global suppliers that do the journey with us. For that, we need very strong procurement organizations that engage globally and lead our organization and our suppliers towards that goal.
José Luis, thank you very much. Any other comments would you have, just to bring some points we didn't touch, you would like to comment in these difficult periods we're living?
Well, I think get used to it. I think is somehow remarkable, the endurance of organizations to overcome difficulties. So let's take the best of this pandemic, because once we exit these times of uncertainties, we are going to be stronger organizations with better capabilities to adapt to changing circumstances and changes permanent in our life, in our business. So let's take the positive aspects of this volatility and create organizations that are customer-centric, fast, flexible, and adapt quickly to the circumstances. So I'm optimistic that we are going to end these times with more capable and flexible organizations that are going to serve better our customers globally.
Muchas gracias, José Luis. Thanks very much, José Luis. Just to remind people, you CEO of one supplier in the renewable energy. So you're working in close relationship with big companies in the energy. And it's interesting, your point of view was very interesting, because you are providing big companies, and the idea of R&D working with procurement, you know what it's about, because you're bringing innovation to this big company. So thank you very much, José Luis, for this point of view. Now, I'm very pleased and honored to welcome Hani Halsey. Is the General Purchasing Manager for Innovations. So, Hani, salam alaikum, Hani. Very pleased to have you here. You did implement some specific action in STC to have purchasing procurement at a very early stage of a decision, to give a green light to the budget before getting the budget confirmed. So you know what it's about, and you understood long times ago had to lower this break-even point in CapEx. So thanks very much to be with us, Hani. And
good afternoon, Asia. Good morning, Europe. Thanks very much, Hani, to be with us this morning. It's a pleasure to welcome you here. The first question I want to bring you is how important is lowering break-even point in the procurement agenda today?
Thank you, Bernard. Thank you, EIPM team, for arranging this conference digitally this year. And also, I wish happy 30 year for EIPM. As you know, Bernard, procurement role to support the organization to achieve the vision and goals. And no doubt, a major goal of any organization post of Corona is to reduce the waste and reduce the operational cost. And as you know, during this Corona crisis, the result of the year of the investment showed, but not always good. And I think this is the good time to review the investment, to remove all this waste and where possible. I think also procurement is in the best position to help to reduce the break-even point by engaging early in the budgeting cycle to reshape the demand. As you know, the CBO today, one of the priorities of any CBO today, to contribute in organization growth and to have the right budget to lower the running costs. And this is very important to be in the early engagement of the budgeting cycle to achieve this.
Thank you very much. And you mentioned on this early engagement in the budgeting process. Can you describe a bit how it works and what you have been doing on this point?
Sure. As you know, usually to setting the budget, it's happened between the finance and business units, with the procurement getting involved in the later stage. The early engagement means procurement is embedded in the process when the business unit start assigning their needs in the coming year. This will allow the better planning and maximize the return for the company. And also based on my experience in STC, this can be happen in the 4th stage, starting from the data collection up to the creating the sourcing initiative. Firstly, this engagement with all our stakeholders in each business unit and monitoring their changing needs over the years. Secondly, design the requirement and shaping the scope. This will help business unit to build the initial budget for the year. After that, number 3, we can enhance this requirement by looking at the re-specification, looking to the demand management, looking to cost reduction also. This will create the right fit budget, which meet the sector needs and the organization operational cost target. Lastly, procurement can start execution the sourcing initiative. This is the 4th stage based on what we implement in STC. The late procurement involvement, this will lead to additional load on the sourcing process and unnecessary activity.
Thank you, Annie. What have been the results in STC? What have been the results of this early engagement in the budgeting process, concretely?
The early engagement involvement in the planning process will deliver a lot of benefit for the company, and everyone will benefit from this. If we start with the business unit, they will build the right fit budget, as I mentioned. They will get view in the supply market analysis. Also, they will get the update list price, showing the TCO impact in the CapEx. They can decide to choose between build versus buy option. And this really will help the business unit to rationalize the project portfolio. For procurement, if you take it from the procurement perspective, this will help to identify better sourcing alternative with synergy across the project. This will help also to bundling the project as a mega deal or mega negotiation. Also to optimize the awarding time frame. As a result, it will help the company in large to achieve the saving, to improve the bottom line, and looking to contribute in the other area beyond the cost. Really, we have to remember here, procurement has a full view to all the spend in the organization. So we can, as a procurement, help align all the requirements with other area in the organization.
Hani, could you say about this early engagement in the budgeting process and all the positive aspects is specific to the telecom business, or you say that this idea of early engagement for lowering the break-evens can be also implemented in any other sector,
in the telecom industry, as you know, it's very fast changing. So the early engagement is even more important for procurement. To have a heads up of the changes in the technology and integrate the scope into the sourcing strategy. But this approach will benefit all industry. Early procurement involvement in budgeting cycle allow better planning and maximize the return. Also, the procurement can lower the break-even point through the budgeting cycle by sitting with insight in the two things, unit price and demand management. In the unit price, they can bring it against the historical price. Also, for the demand management, they can check it against the correlated project and demand assumption.
Okay, Annie, so we in STC and telecom is in a very dynamic market, a very changing market. How it impacts this idea of lowering the break-even points? I know you have to. You're in these words where we're reducing the cost. What can you say concerning these ideas of your sectors, break-even points, and this early engagement?
As I mentioned earlier, really, this early engagement, will be improve the alignment and the collaboration between all the sectors and the procurement. Also, this will allow procurement to work in the sourcing strategy early and to build also the holistic strategy for procurement. This also it will be allows us to early engagement with our partner, which can also help to reduce the cost and build a strong relationship with our partner.
When you speak about partner, you speak about internal partner and external partners, meaning that these early engagements and looking for lowering break-even points has been changing this relation. Besides this idea of costing, how it has been changing this relation with your internal partner and your external partner.
I agree with you. Yes, it's internal partner as a stakeholder in business unit. Will have more collaboration, more engagement together, more understanding to the scope, and help them. And for the external partner, our partner really, it will be easy for them to understand what's our requirement, and this will help us to reduce the cost and have better outcome. And one of the latest survey from our partner, they appreciate our transparency. And I think if we start early with them, this will also increase the transparency between organization and partner.
When you speak about these transparencies, when you were used to buy with one type of suppliers, and based on the idea of break-even points, lowering the break-even point, you say, well, we have to switch to rent or perhaps to make. Do you take this decision in relation with these external partners? How do you communicate this change in your strategy based on this willingness to lower this break-even point?
Yes, our strategy, this is very important. The beginning of the year, when we have the budget and we have the project, we will have this full transparency for the expected scope with our partner. Because if we build our long relationship with our partner, they know what they will coming in the pipeline. They will give us better outcome. They will give us more ideas to have the innovation. As you know, a lot of the innovation came from our partner by this collaboration with our partner.
Yeah, just to be clear with all of the people who are looking at you, when you speak about investments, you have heavy CapEx, infrastructures, you have also technologies, you have all the elements. So can you apply all these strategies to all type of categories you're buying, or you say that it's maybe easier to lower this break-even point on some elements for some categories, such as CapEx, or perhaps for new investments with some startups?
Yes, we have the CapEx project also, and we have the OpEx project. Mainly, this will help a lot also in the OpEx project for the managed service. We have long project with our partner this will reduce the managed service cost, will reduce the OpEx cost, and will have direct impact to the bottom line. And this will help the company to break even the point.
Okay, thank you very much, Hani. Just one final question. Do you have any recommendation for your peers for 2021, this post-COVID year? What do you advise? What are your advice when we speak about break-even points and lowering the break-even point?
Really, we have learned a lot over the last year. But there is three things I would like to recommendation for the organization. First thing, we have agile procurement. Really, agile procurement is not an option today. We need to build the function can deliver in the days and also can adapt to be delivered in the hours also. The second point, as a part of the agile, we need to build the local supply chain where possible to improve the sustainability index and become more resilient. And this localization, it will help to build in-country value. Also, it will increase the GDP. And last recommendation also to build the strong relationship, as you mentioned, with external partner, internal partner. We need to understand our stakeholder, our internal partner needs and challenges to can help them in the future. And all this 3 points cannot be happen if we don't have the right talent. So we need to ensure to have the right mix in our team to deliver the agile procurement and meet financial and digital goal for any organization.
Shukran, Hani. Thanks very much, Hani, for this explanation. These principles of the decision you took, and who gave you the award in 2019, the EIPM Peter Krajcik Award. So this is a complete part of what you have been explaining for these elements of how to lower the break-even point. Now I'm going to welcome the third speaker, Emmanuel Herba, who is the CPO of Capgemini. So I'm very pleased to welcome him because he's in a sector where agility is key. Agility is key, and he has been implementing all elements, getting for the agility, and all the elements he has been implementing allow him to get the award, EIPM Peter Krajcik Awards in 2020, so just after during the COVID crisis. So with that, we understand that he knows a lot on this. Yeah.
just some questions about these points of lowering the break-even point. Cost containment and contribution to lowering break-even point with lower volume is somehow the priority number one of most procurement organizations today. How do you structure your effort, and what kind of competencies do you need for that?
So there are two dimensions to it. This dynamic started well a year ago. Remember, supply chain disruption, evaporation of demand, most companies facing uncertainty on one side and a dramatic reduction of their revenue from 15 to 50%, depending on the sectors. Clearly, the first reaction at CEO level is to say, I need to reduce my break-even point so that I can navigate through the storm. How does it work then? I would say a Pavlovian reaction on the procurement side, which is to stop orders, reduce volumes, eliminate any unnecessary spend. And I would say a more structural answer that comes in the following months, which is, what do I need to release to keep operations running? And how do I need to redesign my supply chain and my demand so that this cost containment is sustainable? So these type of activities cannot be done alone. For sure, you need a command and control structure in your organization, stopping the POs, renegotiating the contracts, managing your supply base. But at the same time, you need to very closely interact with your operations and your sales to enable this to be properly tuned to where your client demand is. Last but not least, and super important, at least in the context of pandemic, but I would say in the context of any crisis, you need to take care of your employees and make sure that their basic needs for safety, for continuity of operations are fulfilled, and basically that your cost containment activities do not impair the mandatory mission of taking care of your fellows. So that's the basic structure. How does it articulate then more specifically? At least in our case, there were task force and war rooms on each major stream. One was operation, another one was supporting our clients. The third one was taking care of our employees. The fourth one was addressing each supply chain disruption coming from the crisis. And I would say within 3 to 4 months, it clearly became obvious that we needed to combine this with a mid-long-term view, because when you hit the brakes, when you change the setup of your organization, when the assumptions are no longer the same, when your volumes are reduced, you need to redesign and rethink the way you're going to operate beyond, again, the hit the brakes type of reaction. Underlying and major enabler is very close cross-functional coordination, horizontally, I'd say, and shortening the decision-making process by connecting directly the key functions to the board and with a high frequency, at least bi-weekly, reviews for information and decision. Talking with peers, I think most successful companies have operated that way, and the ones who were the most agile, the most decisive in converting both short-term and mid-term decisions into action have come out of the crisis pretty successfully. But not only this, they're coming out fitter. Okay? To quote Colin Chapman, the founder of Lotus, light is right in such terms.
Thank you very much. Talents and leadership are rotating in multiple companies toward the kind of expertise and drive enabling such priorities. What are the key drivers of this effort? What do you need to pay attention to, Emmanuel?
So that there's a couple elements into this. One, people behave differently whether you're in steady state or in crisis. And actually, you see talents emerge. You see behaviors, winning behaviors emerge with people who basically connect the dots and are stepping up. And the very nature of leadership evolves. In such case, it's no longer a statutory leadership. It's very much an action-driven leadership. And somehow, what is important is to spot and facilitate the emergence of such leadership. It's not necessarily, I would say, a chaos or a coup d'etat. It's just a different skill set that needs to be expressed, probably less inhibited, more straight to the point, very pragmatic, and able to encompass a broad range of dimensions beyond its own function. And this particularly applies to procurement. So what does it mean? Clearly, it means very high frequency communication and letting people express their views, but also being able to decide and transform suggestions into action with no delay. This has a drawback and a point of attention, clearly, which is some people can be left on the side of the road. Why? Because communication means can become very informal. Decisions go very quickly to the top. Once they're made, it's execution. And as always, you can have a part of your team who feels spectator, okay, or put aside. And if you combine this with, I would say, some personal disruptions, there's a high probability that some people will just feel they're left aside. And I would say the attention of the management is to keep them on board, adjust the expectations to the capabilities of the team, and there is no small contribution there. I would say the biggest trap is to have some fellows who are no longer part of the dynamic, and unfortunately, when things accelerate, it's often is a risk. And another dimension is in terms of talent. Be sure that there is a mix of speed and control. Okay. You may see people very at ease in the crisis mode, in the firefighting, and you need to mix your talents so that you combine those with people who are more structured and more process-oriented, just to be sure that you don't confuse speed and precipitation, so to say. That's all the more important that consequences can be great. And obviously, the dimension that clearly explodes in such case, it's all about relationship. Okay? When you have to work with insufficient data, short lead times, goodwill of your organization, your peers, your clients, keeping the relationship at the highest level in terms of quality and in terms of deepness is super important. So basically, it's made for leaders.
Digitalization and demand management are key drivers, together with governance, getting procurement much closer to CEOs. And given the decision we know, so meaning the next normal, a make or buy decision, drastic volume reduction, how you procurement in Capgemini, have you been working on that?
So digitalization is all about data. And when you need to make quick decisions, it's important to have the most relevant level of information. And this is where basically you can see the difference between organizations who know what is going on. They're able to say, where is their supply, where is their demand, what is missing, what is in excess, what could be eliminated. So it's the data dimension is key. You make good decisions if they are educated decisions, and those decisions are driven by the most available level of data. And that's the digitalization major outcome, is you're on top of your data. And when you have this, you enable a second dimension, which is analyze the demand. And when it's all about doing volume and specification effect, okay? The price dimension, I wouldn't say is anecdotal, but you know, you're going to optimize your price within a single digit dimension. When you work on specification on volumes, you're talking about double digit and high double digits. So it's about understanding the demand. If you do it blindly, you can make huge errors. And sometimes doing it with a more mindful approach can enable to, on one side, identify what is totally unnecessary, on the side, understand where you need to invest. And making the meaningful investment in times of crisis, in times of crunch, and understanding what you need to reduce and what you need to increase from a demand standpoint. If it's well driven by adequate data, then you're making the right decisions. And again, this is where big differentiation has taken place between companies. Some kind of hitting the brakes uniformly, sometimes with dramatic effects, and others modulating their efforts, investing on areas, cutting on others, and readjusting their operating model to make the best of it. Some examples, we've all seen it. When everybody went to work from home, this created a huge disruption in the way a company is allocating its resource. On one side, you need to connect your employees and provide them compute, store resources together with all the enablers to work remotely. On the other side, super important to cut what is totally unnecessary given this new normal way of working. And it's all about balance. The speed at which you execute it is totally different. Okay? Addressing real estate or facilities, negotiations or contracts with dimensions of multi-year contracts has nothing to do with supplying IT equipment. And basically, you need to play on one side on what you invest in, on the other side what you reduce, and work at different paces. All this, again, is very much about timing and data. That's the essence of digitalization.
Thank you, Emmanuel. One interesting point is we know that cash is king, but at the same time, due to the low rate we're living in, a lot of companies is forgetting this idea of cash. And we know that one day or another it will be ending. And some have this debt maybe exploding and so on and so forth. Anything we need to be cautious about when we're focusing on this cash, and what do you suggest?
So this one is, we are at a turning point. Most companies were very focused on cash in the last 10 years, up to the point where most efforts were completed. And this being combined with a low interest era made it kind of less critical. As we all know, in periods of crisis, cash is king. And for companies who short-term need to preserve their cash, because it's their blood, so to say. And mid-term know that if they need to invest, they're going to need cash in more difficult conditions. It's important to put again a clear focus on it, and do it once again in a mindful way, because we all know the society is made of various stakeholders. And among those, there's a lot of small businesses that got completely crushed by the evaporation of cash. And there you need a very differentiated approach. On one side, even if it's not the first reaction, especially for large groups, preserve your cash ratio, improve your cash to cash. On the other side, keep your supply base alive. And make sure that all the incentives, especially governmental incentives, are geared and routed to where it's needed. So it's about being mindful and discerning in the way you optimize your cash. For sure, it's also a matter of survival. What we see today is that the investment capabilities of many companies is reduced across the world. Whilst we all know it's going to be the differentiator when the market accelerates and when we are back for growth. And as a consequence, I focus on cash, and I can make a testimony for my company has been on the top of mind. But again, doing it, taking care of smaller companies and suppliers who are part of our ecosystem, and making sure that it is done with care and in a discerning manner.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Perhaps the last question is about the context. We need to make it more difficult as sustainability, focus on growth, clients, and offset somehow the pushes for traditional cost reduction techniques in a buyer's market. Any final recommendation for your peers, for other colleagues who will be around this conference?
So, with everything we said, we could say this is the golden era of procurement. You know, the kind of decennial crisis that everybody waits for to show what procurement can bring. And we need to not to be lured or take this the wrong way. What is at stake more than ever, and I would say for all companies, first of all, is to restore growth. We're in 2021 March. Some sectors have already resumed growth. If you think about raw material, if you think about freight, for example, some others will have to wait till the end of the year, if not longer. But in everybody's top of mind, growth is a top priority, and never ever you will see a company sacrificing growth for reducing its break-even point. At best, it's going to be profitable growth. So procurement needs to be mindful about not being excessive in that way, and keeping in mind the other dimensions. I would even say we need to be totally schizophrenic and keep the pressure on the cost structure, because it's a priority, because it's a buyer's market. It's not going to last forever. Because it's necessary to keep the companies alive when turnover is reduced. But keep in mind that what is coming, what has already started on other dimensions, on sustainability, because we know that the way we've been operating is not the way we will be operating, that the sensitivity to climate, to societal dimensions, to social dimensions is more exacerbated than ever, and for valid reasons. Stakeholder capitalism now is the way to go, so to say. Growth, I mentioned it, and obviously clients. Never forget that we are into an interconnected world, and that our clients are also suppliers, and all the traditional techniques to squeeze cost from volume, from demand, from price dimension, taking into account, obviously, for the ones who still have a decent activity, the pricing power that is more on the buyer side needs to be balanced with the other stake of the company. And you know, we were mentioning earlier in this conversation that the communication paths have been shortened. So today, any CPO is in direct relationship with its CEO for the importance of the break-even point and the actions that were triggered for now more than a year. On the other side, we know well that the agenda of the CEO is a much broader one than just the cost and procurement needs to understand that. Again, combining, I would say, this brutal agenda with the other dimension is probably the best way for procurement to emerge reinforced and somehow enhanced from this crisis, enabling to survive through the storm, but also anticipating that a nicer weather will be back, that growth doesn't come on a field of ruins. You need to fuel the growth, and that sustainability is the way to go to make sure that everything we have done through the crisis is not associated with larger drawbacks that one try to offset. Yeah? And again, client should, as always, remain the focus, not only for the sales, not only for the marketing, but also, and more importantly, for procurement, because you know then why you are buying what you are buying, which is for the client.
Merci beaucoup, Emmanuel. Thanks very much, Emmanuel, for this great deep presentation, full of thought to think about and to implement. Thank you very much. I'm now very pleased to introduce Aldric Vignon, partner at Argon.
Hi, everybody. So let's wait a minute for everybody to be back with us. Great, thank you all. So we will start this round table after this really fruitful videos and discussion we have been seeing a few minutes ago. So as you may notice, all of you three have made some common focuses, and I would like to start with that. Maybe a first question for you, José Luis, as a CEO. What have you seen from your customers during the last year period? Were the buyers behaving properly or differently?
No, thank you very much. And I share with my colleagues in the panel that this crisis brought an additional set of skills that were needed in order to properly serve. So understanding end-to-end, making sure that we are part of an ecosystem, that we need suppliers, that our customers need us, that we need our suppliers to deliver society what society requires from us. So it's more important than ever before, think end-to-end with the short-term challenges in front of us. Business continuity task force is the mantra in all of our companies, but with the long-term view that we need to stay alive, delivering society the products that and the services that society needs long-term. In our sector, we are lucky that we are part of decarbonizing the world. So it's really working together with your customers, with your suppliers, with the governments in order to make sure that the sector prevail. So you need from the procurement organization more strategic than ever before kind of mindset. So was always important, but in the current circumstances, you need CEO strategic mindset in the procurement departments of at least in our company.
Thank you for your feedback. Emmanuel, you have described a few minutes ago all action you have implemented over the last year. Have you sustained some of them, and for which reasons?
So, as a matter of fact, we've not kept everything because there were a lot of activities that were very reactive due to supply chain disruptions or new needs that didn't last anymore. I'll give you an example. 1 year ago, we were fighting to buy masks. Today, mask is not an issue. Okay. On the other side, we have completely revisited our sourcing strategies across all categories, taking into account the new market conditions. sector per sector, understanding whether it's a constrained or not market, whether the actors are still the same, whether it's a buyer's market, and whether we are facing cyclical evolution or structural evolutions. Yeah. And this will remain. I think organizations have understood that we cannot assume that things will last as before. Yeah, and that change and disruption now is part of the game. There were keywords last year, and that are still valid. Resilience is one, agility is another, volatility, and unpredictability. Basically, with those elements, you need still to plan, still to run strategies, but basically, you need to adapt. You need to be able to adjust, accelerate, slow down, and basically make or buy takes an overall new dimension in that environment. Okay, because clearly the buy dimension has demonstrated that it offers much more flexibility than the make, but has some drawbacks. So all this to say that some activities that were, again, very reactive are stopping. Anything that is about strategizing and exercising all the procurement levers to drive value, agility, speed, resilience, and so forth, this one remains and is more than ever on the table.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Hani, at STC, did you implement such short-term action as well, and did you select the same to be part of your new way of working?
Good afternoon from Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. Thank you very much for arranging this roundtable. Really, this last year is difficult for everyone, and there is a new habit and good practice happen during the last year, and we need to continue this good practice. Maybe I can share two points. The first one, we implement the digital signature during this pandemic, because we cannot meet our partner to sign the contract. And we implement this digital signature, authorized digital signature from the government, and we continue this after the pandemic. And this helps us now today to be 100% paperless procurement organization in STC. And we implement paperless for future initiative in our organization. Second thing, maybe regarding the collaboration with our partner, there is a lot of engagement today during this digital channel and this WebEx and Zoom, and we can reach now the headquarter. We can arrange meeting with all over the world, and this is, we keep it continue after lockdown. And we have also hybrid model now. Maybe these 2 points I would like to share with.
Thank you, Hani. Now let's maybe focus a bit on people and new skill sets, as were mentioned before. José Luis, you mentioned it a little bit before. You've heard Hani and Emmanuel highlighting new profile skills that are now required to lower the break-even point. Do you share this idea with them?
No, clearly. I mean, I can not agree more that you need flexibility, speed. I mean, it's great long-term planning capabilities, because we should not mix, as mentioned by Emmanuel, firefighting with forgetting completely about the structure and processes. But you need to assume that you live in a market of high volatility. So high volatility means first protecting the business, high uncertainties in shipping, in raw material costs. So we started with the first COVID wave, and the first priority was, as mentioned, mask, and then getting materials to the different factories, and then getting products to the customers in different countries, and some countries were in lockdown. So it was a real business continuity task force. But then now you move to a different level, dealing with the uncertainties and the massive volatility that this massive disruption in the supply chain has created. So you need long-term strategic thinkers, but as well people with the right flexibility and speed to change gears very quickly and to adapt quickly to the circumstances. So I would say that we cannot forget about the strategic thinking and about collaboration with supplier, collaboration with your customers. We are part of an ecosystem that we need each other. But we need people with the right drive to make quick decisions, to implement, and not to enter into paralysis by analysis, because by definitions plans are obsolete in 1 week. So you need to react fast, create new plans, and deliver.
Okay,
so which is
you.
a nice combination of strategic thinking and drive in execution, I will say.
Thank you. Hani, during the crisis, did you notice, as Emmanuel said, that you should be cautious about your team, making sure that no one is left aside?
I think the team and the people in the organization is the most important asset. And in procurement, we didn't used to have this remote working, but now we adapt ourselves quickly, and this showing how we are more agile. And also, we keep the engagement with the team. Yes, we are working from distance, but we are very close to each other. We try to keep this all-hand meeting, chicken meeting, calls, using all the digital channel also to have this communication. This is very important to engage the team and adjust to serve our customer and not disrupt our service.
Okay, thank you, Annie. And Emmanuel, did you build on the crisis to review your management style or the management style of your team?
So there are multiple dimensions to this question. Obviously, the work from home syndrome has changed a lot of things, and basically 2 patterns of behaviors have emerged. On one side, very proactive, connected people, crossing boundaries, adjusting to the limitations. And on the other side, people completely overwhelmed, trying to save the planet from their screen. When you give an impossible challenge to only one person isolated, it just creates huge stress, right? So what's the pattern of working from home and the use of all digital tools will remain. And by the way, it was already in place before the crisis for our company and many others. It's just been extended to the very maximum. Because it's been stretched, we need to pay a lot of attention to how people are able to digest it in the long run. It's one thing to work under constraints for a limited period of time. It's another thing to do it systematically. Okay, and what people call the new normal will have to be a balance in terms of lifestyle, management style, and behaviors. And I insist on behaviors because if there is not enough attention to this, it's like thinking that people are robots. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Okay? When we talk about automation, when we talk about artificial intelligence, we always have ethics and human dimension in mind, and we are just in the middle of it today. Another element that I wanted to mention on this is the operating model of companies is going to change dramatically and has already changed with flattening of organizations and very close communication across management layers. Yeah? It starts with the crisis because you need to get things done, and whoever raised the hand and says I have a plan, I'm going to do it, gets the job. And in the long run, we're going to see the link between individual contributors up to the CEO shorten dramatically. Yeah? And the traditional management of command and control and communication layers before information gets transmitted or actions completed will blow up and has blown up. And basically, it's not only an adaptation on the teams, but it's even a bigger adaptation on the management. The traditional management of having all the people around you and controlling what they do and basically working by constant mutual adjustments, it's fading away. It's going to be much more about being clear on achievable yet aggressive objectives, on understanding the means rather than compensating them, and also about promoting proactivity. And you know that the management style has a huge impact on the proactiveness of the people. Yeah? Okay. If you are too directive, if objectives are unclear or not properly framed, basically you don't develop proactiveness. Yeah? Okay. So these are all dimensions that for sure are on the table, and we are living today a revolution on that field. But I think a positive one, because if it's well driven, it's going to drive a new generation of leaders who are much more suited to the way the world is operating.
Thank you, Emmanuel. I would like then now to elaborate on the levers and lowering the break-even point, which is the focus of this roundtable. So you have all mentioned that demand, relationship, specification are one of the key levers to lower the break-even point. I would like to know if you think that it's business as usual from a procurement perspective. So Emmanuel, what are your thoughts about these levers and the current situation?
So this one is work in progress, I'd say. I'm just completing the strategic plan for our procurement function, and it's a big cross-functional work. And what we came across is that whilst yes, the key levers that have been used will remain. Okay. Demand management, optimizing the spec, and so on and so forth, for sure. But there are, I think, other dimensions that are adding to this, which are linked to more the environment in the broad meaning. The environment from a sustainability standpoint. For example, we introduced a new notion. Most decisions were made by what we call total cost of ownership. Okay, this is a 40 years old type of KPI that has driven a lot of decisions. Today, we need to call it TSCO, which is a total sustainable cost of ownership, and sustainable not only for the environment that has taken an unprecedented dimension, but also sustainable from a business standpoint. And by this, I mean, how does it fit in the purpose of your company and its relationship with its ecosystem and clients? And here you see a whole new dimension of opportunities, because, and that's something we learned, by the way, through the last crisis. When the world is falling apart, when you cannot rely on anything from supply chain or technology, at the end of the day, you depend on the goodwill of your ecosystem and your clients. And what we have learned is that if you're able to orchestrate this goodwill and shape it into very strong, more than collaboration, I'd say it's shared purpose, you end up opening completely new horizon between the company, its clients, and its suppliers. Okay. I think whilst, again, the key levers, traditional levers will remain, there's something more that is emerging and that actually will make the difference between the winners and the losers going forward.
Okay, thank you, Emmanuel. José Luis, as CEO, what are your new expectations, and maybe to rebound on what Emmanuel said?
I very much agree. In our experience and in our case, we are in the middle of the value chain for our customers to deliver an essential service to society, which is energy, and a future demand, which is renewable energy. So from that view of sustainability, that's part of the DNA. So I don't expect too many changes other than a high increase on sustainability from all the stakeholders, from investors, clients, banks, everybody. So, but this somehow we were already forecasting that to happen pre-crisis. What is new for us, and maybe as we are one step in the value chain to deliver an essential service to society, was risk management. We were so used that the world was flowing like a machine, so like a takt time. Everything was running perfect, logistic, deviating from the plan was an exception. So when deviating from the plan is a real exception, and then it becomes the normality, and you need to keep delivering electricity, our customers need to keep delivering electricity, we were not sufficiently planning the worst case scenario in order to bring products, in order to bring parts, in order to bring spare parts, and to keep the assets running for an essential service that the society needs. I think could be the same in telecommunication or in other sectors. In our case, I think we need to improve going forward the risk management and the contingency planning for the worst. We were getting used to very worldwide running function supply chain, and this has proven that was not the case in a massive disruption like this.
Okay, thank you, José Luis. Time is running, so I would like to maybe finalize with one last question around budget, which has been mentioned as a key enabler. Hani, could you tell us a little bit more about what you have implemented and the main pitfalls you are facing today after 4 years of process improvement?
Thank you very much. Really, this is one of the most important things regarding the budget today, budgeting cycle, how we can improve our budgeting cycle. As you know, in technology, especially in the technology companies and telecom industry, the technology is very fast changing. And this is will make our role as a procurement to have the baseline, to have the benchmark more difficult. And this is really make us to be ready to be a part of this budgeting cycle, to make sure the organization have the right budget for procurement in the next year. And this also need to be help us to use the zero budget base to build our budget. Based on the experience, really we have successful story to build the right budget, and but we need also improvement. Always there is a pitfall, and we need to improve it, especially when we have new technology, new licenses. There is no baseline and no benchmark.
Okay, thank you. And maybe to conclude, José Luis, how do you push your organization to rethink the budget approach and avoid being too rigid or too strict?
Well, this is very much intrinsic to living with very disruption times. So as we mentioned before, agility, flexibility, speed are crucial. because budgets are very much obsolete. When you are through those disruption times. So budgeting cycle that needs to be shortened and reaction, and it's more important to be on top of activity and planning. I would say long-term planning is less important than short-term optimization in order to minimize impact for society and for our customers. You need to keep the long-term strategic planning horizon and prepare the long-term investments in technology, in supply chain, and so on to deliver your strategic plan. But the changes in supply chain are so massive that you need to adapt weekly in a business continuity task force and assume that budgets might be required to change, and that's part of our life. So we need to be flexible, adapt to the circumstances, take the best, because the companies that will survive will be stronger, agile, and enjoy a better growth just after the crisis.
Okay. So thank you, all of three. I think we run out of time, and we could spend hours discussing on this topic.